Welcome back to the Mintner Method. I'm your host, Andrew Mintner, and on today's video, we're going to break down the Wake Forest NC State game, which is arguably one of our uglier breakdowns for this channel. But we do have an angle that we are tracking and we're going after, and I'm gonna stick with my convictions and what I believe in. So the angle we're looking at is, as you are familiar with, we have done top 15 trends when it comes to EPA on early downs, right? So what we're looking at now is fading bottom 15 teams in early down EPA. Now, sometimes you get that overlap, that sweet spot where you get a great team playing a bad team and then just like fire on all cylinders. But for what it's worth, teams who have been bottom 15 in either offense or defensive EPA have an against the spread record of 28-55. So if you went the other direction, you would be killing it against the spread. Also, on a side note, they are 8-13 against FCS teams against the spread. So even more like eye-opening. So today, the team that we're going to be picking on is Wake Forest, and we have a couple of things here that really stand out. I think the Grayson McCall experiment at NC State is now over. I said at the very beginning of the year that even though he was great at Coastal Carolina, which he was, I felt as if he would struggle in the ACC, as this is a different monster than the Sun Belt. And unfortunately, that came to fruition. But, neither here nor there. I did not have NC State winning the ACC. If you had them winning the ACC or doing some damage, reevaluate your process probably. So anyway, as we're looking at here, you can see Wake Forest on offense is actually okay. They're okay offensively, 61st overall in early down EPA rank, going up against NC State, which is, again, okay on offense. They're 71st overall. And, so nothing crazy to see there, right? When we get into the way that we're really looking at this, Wake Forest is second to last in early down success rate allowed. Early down EPA, not success rate, on defense, 133rd. Now, I know you're sitting there and you're like, Andrew, NC State's 119. So, what the fuck does that even matter? And you're right. It probably doesn't matter too terribly. But, I watched Wake Forest last week, mainly because I was tracking numerous things, and I had a Louisiana play on them. Wake Forest should have lost that game by 3 touchdowns. They had 4 targeting disqualifications for the Louisiana secondary. I have never seen anything like that ever, in any football game across any, I don't know, I'm 34, so I've been watching football since I'm 12. Targeting hasn't been around that long, but I've never seen anything like that. I've never seen probably 3 targeting penalties on a defense in one game, let alone 4, which all led to disqualifications, which is insane. But I digress. Okay, so when we're looking at these rankings here, there's not a lot to look at. The angle is that we are fading teams in the bottom 15, and so that's the angle. But we are going to dive deeper than just that, because this is more nuanced thoughts than just, hey, take this angle and bet it, right? We want to actually break it down a little bit. So when we're looking at the offensive side of the ball, NC State offers a little decent, explosion, a little bit above average. Wake Forest is just abysmal across the board. Now, I know you're like, Andrew, look at this. So is NC State. Well, yeah, in certain areas they are pretty bad. But as we're going down here, 58th rushing explosiveness, 57th passing efficiency, 79th in passing explosiveness. Those are solid, solid in this matchup. They might not be solid in the grand scheme of the ACC and the success of their team overall, but in this matchup, that's pretty good. And this is one other thing I want to show you. They're moving on from Grayson McCall to C.J. Bailey, and I think Bailey was probably the right play, in my opinion. He comes out, nothing spectacular in any one of these 3 games. He did play decently against Clemson, for what it's worth, but Clemson was just on a Dabu Sweeney rampage that day. Somebody probably told him that he needed, to use more transfers in the transfer portal, and he just lost his mind and prayed to God. I have no idea. I don't understand that, man. But I think C.J. Bailey is probably the move in the right direction. Bailey is a freshman, 6'6", not a highly touted recruit. I think he was 3 stars via 247, and so not terrible, right? So one thing I want to point out is this other metric that we have been tracking when it comes to blitz, teams that blitz versus teams that don't blitz, and the percentages, right? Okay, so Wake Forest is 128th in blitz percentage at 12.2%. Now, that's you're probably oh, well, what's the context of that, right? Well, the average is 27.5%. So they are so far underneath the average for that. And so you're probably okay, well, they don't blitz a lot, so probably they get pressure with their front seven. They do not. 131st in havoc rate for their front seven havoc rate, just horrendous. So they play in soft zones and soft, coverages, and they're just getting eaten alive. So I think this is a matchup tailor-made for a freshman quarterback to kind of get his legs underneath him after playing the likes of, Clemson, and he played Northern Illinois, and I know you're oh, well, Northern Illinois is a MAC team. Yeah, well, they're also insanely good in the secondary, and they would probably do better in the ACC than Wake Forest is going to do this year, if we're being completely honest. And so when we look at the Wake Forest side of the ball, they're coming off that barn burner game against Louisiana, which they just got. They should have gotten rain out. The game was. There's no way that's accurate. It says 7 hours. It's not accurate, but. And now going on the road to play at North Carolina State is going to be tough. The line is only 5.5, 6. I'm not really understanding. I thought it would be much higher. I thought it would be 8 or 9. And I know that you're looking at NC State through the optics of this is a failed season. They were expected to do much better. But I don't view it like that. It was the same thing when they brought in Devin Leary. Everybody kind of felt like they were going to do better. They didn't. Doesn't mean it was a failed season. They're not some powerhouse. But in this matchup, they should do really well. Way better than what they have done so far. And so that's pretty much the take. I'm going to fade Wake Forest, which is an all-time bad team. And I think NC State, with a new injection, with several starts now under his belt, and a new quarterback who is a freshman. So, freshmen make gigantic, they can make huge leaps in progression versus, Grayson McCall, who has been a starter for 4 or 5 years. You know what you're going to get with him. You know what he is. And that has not fared well against, Power 4 competition right now. So, but that's going to be it for this episode, guys. As always, if you enjoy the content, please comment, subscribe, share it with your friends, family, anybody who you think would be interested. When I do early in the week videos or things of that nature, I always look for suggestions. If you have suggestions for a matchup you want me to break down, I'm more than happy to do that. I've done several this week already from suggestions from earlier in the week. Excuse me. Obviously, it's Friday, so I'm not going to be able to do anything else suggestion-wise. I have a family and stuff, so I can't just do them on a whim. I got to get them done earlier in the week when I get suggested videos. So other than that, guys, I really appreciate the support. The channel is growing. That's kind of silly, but I think it's up to 30 subscribers now, which is hilarious because it started with 4 or 5 of my friends who watched. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, as always, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you on the next one. Take care.